Pitwalk TV blickt voraus auf den Gruppe C Supercup auf dem Hockenheimring Anfang Mai. Eine junge Veranstaltung, die es im vergangenen Jahr zum ersten Mal gegeben hat. Beim Jim Clark Revival, beim Jim Clark Memorial Gedächtnisrennen zugunsten des unvergessenen Schotten. Jetzt gibt es die Zweitauflage zum Gruppe C Supercup. Ein Rennen in Hockenheim, ein Rennen in Assen in Holland im September. Und wir haben für diese Folge von Pitwalk TV zwei ganz besondere Gäste, nämlich einmal den Le Mans-Sieger von 1989, Stanley Dickens, der damals in einem sauber Mercedes den Gesamtsieg eingeheimst hat. Und einmal Marco Werner, der ab dem Jahre 2005 dreimal in Folge die 24 Stunden von Le Mans für Audi gewonnen hat. Weil Stanley Dickens aus Schweden stammt, wechseln wir natürlich die Sprache und unterhalten uns künftig in Englisch. Es fällt etwas leichter für Stanley Dickens und Marco Werner logischerweise als langjähriger IMSA ALMS-Pilot auch der englischen Sprache durchaus mächtig. So we switch to English for this and say first of all thanks for coming, Stanley Dickens, all the way from Sweden. I understand you've driven this car as well, which was way before my era.
A few years ago, yeah.
The car is going to be run at the Super Cup in Hockenheim. If you see it now, after such a long period of time, what kind of memories does it bring back to you?
It brings back lots of memories, to be honest, but I don't think we have time for that now.
We have.
It's a fantastic car, and I cannot imagine really that it's the same car almost as 35 years ago. It's fantastic.
It's been completely rebuilt, so it is actually
completely rebuilt, and I think it is marvelous, and they have done such a fantastic job. It's a new car.
It's a Group C2 car, so it is a kind of a beginner's series inside Group C, what it used to be in the golden 80s and 90s. You've driven Group C2 cars for Gebhardt as well, Marco Werner. How do these cars feel from a modern driver's point of view?
I was surprised because it was not so far away from downforce and the corner speed. So I was really surprised last year in Le Mans and as well in Hockenheim. In Hockenheim you have some quite fast corners and the other car is quite good. So it's not so far away from the modern cars.
You sit inside an alloy tube, an alloy like a bath tube, so to speak, compared to what you know as a carbon fiber car.
Yeah, of course, that's a little bit the different to the 80s, the safety. And I think in this time you need more balls than in a modern time to do some corners flat, because you have it always in your mind if it's going wrong. And don't forget that the racetracks are far away from the safety what we see today. So it was really, I think, a hard time for them. And not the safest time. The cars are quite good, but yeah, thanks God that we can drive this car now on safe tracks, much more runoff areas, something like that, and that we can enjoy these cars and having our fun.
Did you have that element of danger in your mind at that time, or were you too young and say, let's go?
No, well, it was a dangerous time, and in the Group C, also Formula One, of course, was dangerous at that time, much more than it is today, I think. And the Group C cars were terribly fast, and the cars were carrying so much weight also. So once you had a trouble, and if you were forced to leave the track, it could be really dangerous sometimes, as we know. And we lost many good friends during a couple of years there, which was not so fun. So of course it's always in your mind, I think, every time we step into a racing car, but more before than now, I think.
There is still this.
But you didn't know what you can improve, so you didn't know how it is like today. So that's why you put the pedal to the floor and you did it.
Well, yeah. No, but it was. I remember. I have a very special memory with this car, because the first time I drove it was at Spa, and I think we are talking about 1985. And
That year.
1985, the last century. Not this. And that was the same race as we lost Stefan Belov.
That's why I said that year.
Yeah, that year. And just a few weeks before that, we lost Manfred Winkelhock Canada.
Mosport, yeah.
So I mean, it was of course your mind was a little bit in trouble during that time. That's for sure. For me personally, it was a fantastic race because the race was stopped when this accident happened, and I think I can't remember exactly, but I think we were running second, and it was Jelinski and myself and what's his name, John Graham, and we were running second, so we finished second. And for me, it was I must say it was the step into a more professional career from that day on, and very much thanks to the team, Gebhardt team and Fritz Gebhardt, who really gave me this chance and who followed me for many years. And it was important for me, and definitely a step into the professional racing world.
Did that kind of open the door and pave the way towards?
Absolutely. I had some success before that, but I also had a dip in my career during those years, and then I came into this team, and it was very nice from many point of views, because it was also very nice people, and it's so nice to be back here now with this group of people. I think I've worked with everyone here in the team on different occasions and different races and levels and so on. So it's very, very, very nice. It's a social thing. And if I can drive the car, I really don't know. But let's see.
If we're talking about Group C, even these days, 30 years onwards, there is still this myth around Group C racing as perceived as the golden era of endurance racing. You've been a key player in that time. I said Le Mans winner 1989. What made Group C so very special that it's even admired today?
For me, I was always, I loved sports cars, I must say. I did quite a lot of single-seaters in the beginning of my career. Went up to Formula 2. I applied for a Formula 1 license, but I never raced a Formula 1 car. And I was looking into Group C because I thought it was a good chance to make a professional career. And I love the shape of the cars. I think they are beautiful cars, and it became very special for me, and it was already before. So a world championship for sports cars was always something I looked. I had an extra eye on that when I was a young boy and looked at, the Ferraris and Ronnie Pearson and Andretti and all those guys, Jackie Hicks and all these famous drivers.
And for you, as somebody who hasn't participated in Group C at that current time, we talked about it before, that there is even a special draw for you. What makes it so special?
Yeah, of course, I mean, it's one step in the sports cars. The 60s and 70s was as well quite interesting, because sometimes in the 70s the McLaren M8, it was faster than the Formula 1, and what Stanley said as well, you are on the level or on the speed like the Formula 1s as well with the Group C cars in this decade, and in my time as well. You are on the real same level, and you're driving against Formula 1 drivers, so that's why I think always, not only the Group C time, but always the sports car time is very special, or something what is very, very interesting, because you can drive against the big guys. Remember when we drove in Le Mans, we drove against Jacques Villeneuve. He was with Peugeot, when I drove with Audi, and there's something special if you give him by night 4 seconds.
And you said to me once that you remember you as a young kid standing in front of such cars and with gleamy eyes and adoring them cars.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I grew up with motorsport. My father did it, and so I was looking always at the racetrack, especially at the sports cars, at Group C. And then in Stanley's time, I was very close with Jochen Maas. He was my mentor in the Formula Opel Challenge.
Mine too.
You too. And so that's why I was following always these Group C cars, because they are fast. And remember, Stefan Belloff's time at the Nordschleife was the fastest time ever on the Nordschleife, much, much faster than Formula One cars. So that's always a special thing.
I got to remember that when your heyday in Group C racing was, Le Mans was without chicanes.
Yeah.
So you were going, what, 400 kilometers an hour?
We were doing over 400, but my official top speed was in the race was 394, I think.
Which is rather slow, 394, given that they're doing more than 400.
Jesus, yeah, that's amazing. I mean, this time without the chicanes, so much speed. I think you have a long straight, you have a long time to think about your tires and everything, and sometimes it's boring, but I think you're starting to thinking a bit too much, maybe. Yeah.
And at that time there were mainly 2 guys sharing a car rather than 3 as you have it nowadays?
It was mostly 3 drivers actually, but when I won the race, if you're thinking of that, we were also 3. Mm-hmm. It was Reuter and Massa and myself. But I also drove a few years later with, actually the year after with Vulek, and then we were only 2 drivers. So I think it was a strategy made up from the team, and depending on the driver standard and other circumstances.
How hard was it driving these races with 2 drivers only? Did you have, as he put it, bigger balls than current drivers?
I don't think I had bigger balls, I think the 24 hours is a very long time for a racing car, and I still cannot understand how they can construct a car that lasts so long at those speeds, and the amount of pressure you put into the car, it's unbelievable. And of course, if you have 3 or even 4 drivers, which you can have sometimes, it wears a lot on different parts of the car, and especially the gearbox. So I think it is better actually to be less drivers, and 2 drivers for me is the ideal amount of drivers in a car, I think.
Nowadays they always say it's a 24-hour sprint race, so you don't actually hold back like you would have held back at certain periods of the time just to save the car and material. Is that the case, or is it like the Nordschleife 24 where you still have to obey certain lap times to not overdo it?
I think the time changed a little bit because physical it went harder and harder over the years with more downforce. The cars are faster. When you think about the Porsche corners, what we are doing with 270, nearly to 4G. With the downforce, and I think that's why they made the step to 3 drivers. And because I can see it a little bit, because I won in 2016 the historic 24-hour race with the Porsche 936, and there just 1 hour was much harder in the heat than with our modern cars, with the Audi. So the Audi is harder during the corners, and the other one was much harder to drive because you have no forces for the steering wheel, what help you a little bit. You have shifting with the normal gearbox and not on the pedals, but it's quite easy. So there are some different things, but I felt it was very hard with the old cars from the 70s. 1 hour was harder than 2 hours or 3 hours than with the Audi. But in general, the speed is higher and your concentration, you need a bit more there. So I think that was the step to go with 3 drivers.
And how does the Group C2 car fit into this comparison? You've won a Group C race of the historic championship in a C2 car overall, in the Gephardt car. Okay, it was on the small circuit Bugatti, but you still would have got a feeling for it.
Yeah, but it's a bit a mix of that. But I think that's why in this time they make the change to 3 drivers, because this have both of these things. It was hard to drive because you have the normal gearbox, and no support for the steering wheel, and you have no power steering, and you have the high G-forces. So they went up extremely with the Group C cars with corner speed, sometimes much more speed than Formula One cars, and both things together, that was quite hard, and that I think that was the changing from 2 drivers to 3 drivers.
We're sitting in front of a Group C2 car, as we say, one of the beginners cars to get into sports car racing. You've then taken the step to C1 racing. You've won Le Mans in the Sauber Mercedes, as I say. If we're looking forward towards Hockenheim and try to explain a little, what's the difference between a C2 and one of the C1 cars?
The weight is different, and of course the speed, because we are the C1 cars obviously had more horsepower but also more weight. So the difference was on a normal track, I would say, differed something between 8 and 10 seconds maybe, from the quickest C1 to the quickest C2. But when you sit in the car, you really don't think much about that. I mean, it's the same feeling and same concept. If you ask me, that's my opinion.
We're hoping to see you at Hockenheim for the Super Cup race. Are you going to be bang on time, quick enough again in that car, or is it going to be like shifting into it?
As I said, I'm glad to be here with the boys, and for me it's a more social thing. If I can drive, I don't know. I haven't been in a race car for like 20 years, so it's gonna be. I'm excited, but quite relaxed.
You've shifted your focus from works driving, Audi and professional sports towards historic racing in Group C2, but also historic Formula One, like you're going to do the Monaco Historic Grand Prix as well. What's the special charm, so to speak, of historic racing?
I mean, it's a little bit back to the roots. You can enjoy your weekend about all these press things, what is on the other side.
You mean I shouldn't come?
You are invited, you can come. But you know how much we have to do on the other side on the weekend. So sometimes we are thinking about what we are doing. We are here for press releases, or we are here for racing. So that's really nice if you can enjoy the historic races, just driving, and enjoy your time with some friends on the track and something like that.
You've done the Le Mans race, as I said. You've done the Hockenheim Historic in the other Gephardt car and the red one, the later generation car. Is this really proper racing, or is it more like a rolling museum and enjoy the cars, but it's not like tough fighting?
Forget it. It's sometimes tough fighting. Remember Monaco with Jean Alesi? And they are really good guys, not only all the professional drivers, but some really good gentleman drivers in these classes everywhere. I drive sometimes with my own Lotus 22 from 1963, and there are some guys, they are over 60 and they are really fucking fast. So I never want to race in the Formula Junior against some older guys. So it's interesting, and in all the classes you have some really good guys, like in the Formula One Master Series. So it's interesting and it's tough. It's racing, it's real racing.
I was surprised to see how much effort from a team goes in there. Like they come with blankets or with ovens for the tires and everything. It's like a proper Le Mans paddock.
Of course. Yes, it's a lot of teamwork as well there. So they are prepared quite well. They are testing like hell in the moment in England. And this is really nearly to the professional sport when you see how much kilometers they do for testing and everything. So we are going maybe once in a year for testing, but enjoying our time on the weekends.
Obviously, one question which comes to mind is, are we going to see a Le Mans winning car, or at least the sister car at the Hockenheim Historic? Would be nice if you were in that rather than the C2 car.
No, I prefer this one. There is a friend of mine, Kenny Atchison. He has one of the cars from Sauber. If that was what you meant, yes. I suppose.
Yes.
I don't think he will attend, unfortunately, because he doesn't have the setup to run the car really. He bought it as a collector, and unfortunately, but we'll see. I'm talking to him actually.
I was going to say, you know what to do now. You're going to talk him into that race.
I will try.
Thanks a lot, Stanley Dickens, Le Mans winner 1989, and Marco Werner, Le Mans winner 2005, 6 and 7, for this enlightening talk. Vorschau aufs Gruppe C Festival auf dem Hockenheimring, auf den Supercup. Wir machen mit der nächsten Folge von Pitwalk TV dann weiter mit der nächsten Talkrunde im Hinblick auf das große Spektakel in Hockenheim. Bis dann.